Welcome to Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists, a podcast from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. We're your hosts, Corey Oakley and Ben Ricks, two bald guys who happen to be fish biologists and avid fishermen. We hope the information that you learn in this podcast will help you think like a fish and become better fishermen. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists. Ben, how's it going, man?
It's good, except for the fact that my boat's in the shop. But they told me they like working on simple things.
Oh, generally, that's a good sign.
They saw you coming.
I was glad to hear that. We'll see. Hopefully, it doesn't escalate.
Hopefully not. Yeah,
we enjoy these mind tricks.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did catch some fish out of it recently.
That's
So
that's good.
The boat's earning her keep.
Yeah.
But now I just got to invest in
Some
that a
more
little
keep.
bit.
Yeah,
So,
understood. Well, today we have Ryan Kinnemer with us, and Ryan's going to talk to us about going fishing with us. We're saying a novice fisherman. We'll say maybe a lapsed fisherman. How about that?
I think probably both. I was novice before I lapsed.
Well, there you go. So it was both. So today's podcast is going to be trying to get back into fishing, what that feels like and what that experience was and those kinds of things. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been with the agency 10 years now. And
Wow,
I started,
that long?
that long. Started out as a PIO, and then I moved into social media, and then I've recently become the digital engagement manager. And so I work with photographer and videographer and a coordinator. And so I still get to do the social media stuff. I still get to do content creation, except for now I'm in a managerial sort of area.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
That's all right.
so for most of you people that listen to us that are like me, he helps with the podcast.
Yeah.
Among many other
Among many other things that he does.
marketing type activities that the Wildlife Commission does. So
Wear some hats. Except for I don't wear hats typically.
That's true.
It's true.
I don't see you much in a hat.
Only in the boat, baby.
Well, anyway. Well, good to have you here. Glad you went fishing with us.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that. But Ben, you talked about Ben fishing. So let's talk about our fishing and how that went.
yeah. So we took Ryan fishing, and before we get started, I think the objective is to talk about. Now we can go this road, but when he pitched it, he says, "What's it like to go fishing with Ben and Corey?" Now that's a whole different experience than what's it like to be a novice. So you can feel free to talk about both aspects.
All right. I'm going to sit on my hands and shut my mouth and wait for you guys to.
That's not good for a podcast for you not to talk.
Okay, fine. Then I'll go the other way.
There may be some insights on just fishing activity, and he may have also had some insights into this dynamic, which could be enlightening and possibly even therapeutic.
Well, I brought notes on that.
So I'm interested to hear how that might work. So Ryan approached us. He said, "Hey, I'd like to talk about fishing, experience fishing again. Haven't done it in years." And talking with Ryan, he and I grew up fairly close to each other, just down the road. He was a little bit further west than me, but the same neck of the woods. We both call it chicken and pastry,
We do.
as we just found out.
As we just talked about.
Well, they're different.
That was gold, folks. We should have recorded it. But anyway.
Yeah.
Deep
Deep
discussion
thought on chicken and pastry.
on pastry versus dumplings.
They're not the
right.
same.
Yeah, not the same. But so we wanted to talk about what's it like to be an inexperienced angler? What's it like to experience a trip out on the water, from that point of view, which I think is interesting, especially for many of you guys and gals who may be in that boat. So we often talk about our favorite research projects are the research projects that involve having to angle for fish. And this spring, we had a catch and release mortality study that we did on the Roanoke River on striped bass. And many of you know that's a world famous fishery. Typically, you can find some fish to catch. Well, it just so happened that the day we put in, and this is fishing, folks, so we're keeping it real. But the day that we chose to fish, the bite was not on, was it, Ryan?
It was not. At least we got to share some quality time together.
It was very good bonding time. There was not many distractions from the fish.
No, and all the drinks in the cooler did not taste like anything but drinks. They had no fishiness to them at all. I mean, silver linings everywhere you look, boys.
Right. Except for
No fish caught.
we caught one fish that day. One fish. So
I caught 0. I was ticked.
That was very end of the day too. So
yeah.
His backyard, he's like, hey, there's fish here to be caught. And,
I mean, I did catch them the week before, and we did have to reschedule, and that may have been my call. And yeah, sometimes the best laid plans, guys. But you still fish that day. So let's talk about that for a bit. We tried valiantly. So
yeah, I mean, it was cool to be back there. That was, like you said, we've grew up in that area. That was where my dad would take me to fish. Like, that was just down the street. I have great memories of going out there and having big days. I've lost numerous hats and sunglasses in that river from not being prepared when the boat got going and that sort of thing. So,
and now he doesn't wear hats.
we've all been there.
And now I don't wear hats. I mean, it's probably a core memory that I just unlocked, but it was cool to be back out there because, my family's from out there and, I got to drive by like 2nd Street lunch and get some food there and sort of brought back a lot of memories of my childhood because like we did have some great days out on that water. This was not one of those, but
It was a great day.
it was a great day just being with the guys,
It was a good day on the water. The weather was nice.
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
great.
I tried valiantly, and I pride myself in being able to find fish, especially on water that I have many, many years of fishing. And it was a tough day. And we were trying to catch fish with jigs that day, and we bounced some straight tails pretty hard all day long. And, some days, and this is the lesson, if you're trying to learn to fish, some days it's not you. Some days it's just they're not going to cooperate. And that's okay, because if you go enough, and that's, to me, hunting and fishing success. I mean, yes, there are people who go out there and they throw a buzzbait one time and they catch a 10-pound bass. That's not my luck at all. My luck is, it's a numbers game. And if I catch enough, eventually, maybe if I'm lucky, one day I'll catch a big one. And that's really what fishing is it's a lot of persistence. And sometimes just for 20 minutes of excitement, So it just depends. It depends. Some days it's all day fast and furious. You can do no wrong. And some days, like our first trip out, it was
all day fast and furious jigging.
Yeah. I mean, even the guys with live bait that day weren't catching them. It was just a day. And we were marking fish on the depth finder the whole day. So
that was my favorite part of the whole trip was actually seeing other people mad as I was, just be like, yeah, you get this, I get this.
From my experience, when there's a tough day, it's at least a little bit better of a pill to swallow if you're like, well, most everybody else out here was struggling too.
Oh, it's the worst to come back to a boat ramp. You have had a bad day and somebody's like, we whacked them.
Yes.
And you're like, man.
Oh, well, now the only conclusion that I can draw is I made all the wrong decisions.
I'm bad at this.
Yeah, I made bad decisions today because somebody did it. And I will say almost every day, somebody does that. Like it can be bad all over, but somebody somewhere figured it out and caught them.
And then you get home from a tough day and you go on the socials and you're like, oh, well, everyone but me creamed them because...
Not to pick on Ryan's line of work, but social media is the worst for that kind of junk.
Oh, yeah. It'll make you feel real bad real quick.
Yeah. It's like, oh, my gracious. Everybody caught them everywhere. And I'm over here twiddling my thumbs. But anyway.
So before we move to our more successful trip, we were drifting. We were doing everything that you're supposed to do. If you were to read an article that was written about Roanoke River striped bass fishing, we were doing the techniques that should have worked, the techniques that I have done for many, many, many years. And some days they're just not hungry. And if you find them and they're not in the kitchen, it's hard to catch them.
Now, for someone who doesn't fish a lot, what would you attribute that to? It's just when they're just not biting, is it water temperature issue? Is it, they had a lot of food before, like in this area, and now they don't care? I mean, This might be a stupid question, but
No.
I'm full of those. So let's go.
I think it's a great question, actually. And it's, to me, it's hard to hang your hat on like one variable. A lot of people be like, well, is the cold front or is the quarter moon or is it, but to me, it's this host of variables that all play and interact with each other. And they all play and interact with each other sometimes for the good, and they all play and interact with each other sometimes for the bad. So, your core variables are, the water temperature, the visibility, food availability, whether or not there's been a current change, the weather, just the current weather pattern we're in. Those are kind of your big main factors. I mean, Corey and I talk about this all the time. In none of our fish classes did we ever talk about moon phase, but there's something that the moon does to fish.
Absolutely.
Well, it controls the tide. So.
Right. So there's all these variables that kind of play and interact with each other. And sometimes it makes it work and sometimes it doesn't. And to be honest, on that particular day, I do not have well, maybe it was this, and that's why they didn't eat. But I can tell you that they weren't hungry. And some days fish just be like that.
Yeah. I ate more than they did that day.
Yeah. It all comes back to feeding. That's when they bite your hook, right? It all comes back to them feeding. And there, like Ben said, there's so many different variables that affect that activity by them, of them going around and feeding. And sometimes those variables line up and they're ready to eat and everything's in front of them and they do it. And then sometimes they're very, very picky because they might have fed earlier. I mean, seriously, they don't eat all the time, so that's something that people don't think about. Like, well, why aren't they eating? I'm putting it in front of them. Well, just like us. I mean,
I have a 3-year-old, so
you can eat all the time, but it's not a wise decision. They don't eat all the time. They eat in phases. And so you might have just caught it wrong.
I mean, we were there in the pre-spawn window and they may have been gearing up to spawn. And a lot of times when fish are gearing up to spawn, they do
care
not
less
eat.
about feeding.
So
can you scare a fish away by throwing a line too much? Like what scares fish?
that's a deep,
That
we're going to have a whole podcast on just that.
Fine.
No. We can.
This is a great question because fish do respond to pressure, and it, again, there's a lot of variables at play, but yeah, if they feel the presence of your boat, they know you're there. And sometimes, especially in a heavily fished population, they can get a little skittish around angling activity. Do I think that happens on the Roanoke River? No, because river fish are generally more aggressive. But in a heavily pressured lake or a heavily pressured pond or something like that, yeah, definitely fishing pressure can matter.
And they do have memories. Their memories are brief. Like, there's been studies on that. I mean, it depends on the species of fish, but like, say, for example, Ben went out to his pond and he caught a bass with a purple worm. And that bass got caught by that purple worm. Say he goes back 2 days later, 3 days later, and throws that same purple worm in front of the same fish. That fish may have that memory of that purple worm and what happened to him after he ate that purple worm.
Not falling for that again.
Yeah, I'm not falling for that again. But eventually that memory will fade. Like, they don't have a long-term memory. They have a short-term memory. So, and it varies. I mean, there's been all kinds of studies done and it varies from species to species. But so there's that part of it too. Like, for instance, not in our situation because there was thousands of fish in the river at that time. So not all of them have been caught by a white fluke that we were throwing. But say you happen to throw your bait in front of that had been caught by a white fluke, that striper had been caught by a white fluke, 3 days before. It might remember that white fluke and be like, no, I'm not doing that. So that's a part of the pressure thing as well. But generally pressure is just, they get a lot of activity that they know is not natural.
Yeah, it's a disturbance.
It's a disturbance. It's either boat sound, boat noise, or baits going across in front of their face that they're like, that doesn't look normal to me. That doesn't look like an animal I should eat. Like, it's not being presented well, or the bait's just unnatural in general. Like, it's just a clunky bait or something like that. And they're able to see it really well. They'll be like, I'm not interested in that either. And that's a part of pressure. So there's all kinds of things we can talk about pressure and why they don't bite, but yes, you are right. I mean, there are fish that do spook. You can be loud enough to spook fish and make them. Red drum's a really good example.
When we went to Lake Phelps, those bass were spooky.
Yeah, those bass were spooky at Lake Phelps. If you listen back to that podcast, they knew our presence. You could tell those bass knew our presence. We could visually see them, and they knew when we got too close, you knew you got too close. They knew it. So particularly fish in shallower water that are visual predators, if you get too close to them or if you make a loud noise like a boat motor, boat motors, red drum are notorious for not liking boat motors. They don't like it at all. I mean, red drum anglers will get mad at you if you go by, they're fishing and you go by them pretty close with a boat motor. They don't like that either. So there's different species vary. But yes, human interaction with them does have an effect.
How about like casting a shadow over the water? Does that do anything? Or
it can.
Yeah, it can.
I mean, to me, shadows are a big, or maybe even more of a problem per se, because, it doesn't know if you're a bear, if you're a shadow of an eagle, something trying to eat it, it's something that, it casts a shadow. And so that it recognizes it as a change, an abrupt change.
Yep.
And so
the sun didn't just do that. Something happened to make that do that.
It gives them a warning sign that something's about to try to eat me, possibly. So
if you go back and look at on our website and look at the Carolina All Out shows that we've done with Carolina All Out, there's one that we did that was brook trout, backcountry brook. It might not have just been brook trout. It might have been trout in general, but it was mountain trout. And those guys were in really small streams, but they were hiding. Like they were visually down below where they were trying to fish. They were fishing over a ledge and hiding behind stuff. And that's because those trout can visually see you and they're very spooky. Once you get up on them, it's too late. You've already messed it up. You might as well just go on somewhere else. So there's definitely species, especially visual predators, are very much that way, I would say. That's a great question, Ryan, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Ryan went with us fishing. We're supposed to, be the experts, and it didn't work out.
He let me down.
I let him down. But that happens. That's fishing, right?
We let him down. I'll join you. That's okay, Ben.
It's mostly Ben, but okay.
It's mostly me. It's okay. Not everybody hits a home run every time, You got to swing hard if you want to hit a home run. So sometimes you miss. And I missed. Dory, you want to add anything to that?
No, you missed. That's all right.
Yeah. But we started this train, and we still wanted to give Ryan the fishing experience. So we rescheduled him. We rescheduled him on the absolute hottest day of this,
oh my gracious,
this year of our Lord 2025. The only time my electronics have ever given me an overheat warning was on this day.
It was sweltering.
So, as many of you anglers who are listening may know, if 105-degree day,
there was not a cloud in the sky.
Your options are limited now.
And not a breath of wind. It was none of those things. It was just hot.
My shirt was see-through by the end of the day.
And I said, well, Ryan, when can you get there? And he said, 11 o'clock.
Right when the sun is...
And Ben and I went.
And I said, well, when can you leave? And he's like, I'm probably good till about 3:30. And I was like, oh, so the hottest part of the hottest day of the year. Now, many of you people are going, that are fishermen are probably going, wow, the deck was stacked against you. And it was. So I had to go with something I knew, something that would be relatively easy. I would have rather done something that was directly in our wheelhouse, like bass or stripers or something like that. But a few days before, I had taken my wife out and we'd caught a bunch of bluefish in the lower Neuse River. So fishing is fishing. Doesn't matter how salty the water is. If you're a novice, you just want to fish, right? So we went out and we found those bluefish, and almost the exact same technique and presentation, throwing flukes, jigging on the bottom, and lo and behold, it worked this time. So let's talk about that, Ryan.
Worked really well. The first one, I think, was a speckled trout.
That is correct.
Is that right?
Yeah. It was a nice speckled trout.
It was, yeah.
About 3 or 4 pounds.
Yep. And pulled them in, got my picture took, sent it to my daddy. It was nice. It was cool to have that, to feel the fight of a fish again, because I haven't felt that in, 15 years now. Something like that. The only fish related stuff I've done in the past 15 years is I took my daughter fishing in a pond behind my parents' house and we caught nothing. And then I did match with my wife on plentyoffish.com. It's a dating site.
I too met my wife on plentyoffish.com.
Did you? Look at us.
Look at this. Look at us.
What in the world? I don't even want to go. Anyway, just move on.
Yep. All right. Anyways.
Wow. Here we go.
Yep. We'll talk about that off pod though.
I did not meet my wife at plentyoffish.com, just to be straight up honest with you. I mean, I'm glad it worked out for the two of
I'm
you.
thinking sponsorship.
It was a gold mine for me. I mean, I had dated everyone.
Everyone.
It's literally everyone. And I looked at my computer and I said, well, do you know anyone? Because I didn't know where else to look. So, and it said Plenty of Fish. So I was like, well,
This is a sponsorship waiting to happen, by the way.
So anyway,
We digress.
who knew?
Sorry.
Who knew?
Sorry, that's on me.
These are the things you find out on a podcast once you're recording. So anyway, fishing.
one thing, I mean, gosh, it was so hot, but like we weren't grumpy or anything. It was still a nice day on the water. And I had not realized just how far technology had come. You know, like my uncle on his boat when I was a kid, he had a fish finder, and you know what it did? Not much.
Might have told you the bottom some of the time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But this time, Ben would be like, well, they're over there and there's a lot of them. Just cast over there. And then that worked. And
It's not always that simple,
no,
by
I'm
the
sure
way.
it's not. Well, I'm sure there's some sort of.
Sometimes that investment, I do have a scope on my boat. I've got a Lowrance Active Target, and sometimes it's worth the money, and sometimes it's
Most aggravating thing on the boat.
a tool, and you have to know when to use it. That's what I'll say. There's a lot of debate about whether it should or shouldn't be a thing. It is a thing, and sometimes it can be a useful tool. So
I can tell you, Ryan, I don't have that on my boat, but I've been on Ben's boat plenty of times with it. And there are times where Ben goes, they're over there, and they do exactly what those stripers did in the Roanoke River. They sit and look at the bait and be like, yeah, I don't really care. Thanks for playing.
I took Corey and his son fishing, and we watched fish for a good 8 hours one time. So they never did turn on.
No,
So-
they did not.
But the fact that that worked seemed like a magic trick to me, you know, because it happened a couple of times. You go, oh, now they're over there, just cast over there. And then, gosh, you know, we went from catching one in the Roanoke River to what did we end up with? 15, 13 bluefish and 2 speckled trout. And
Something like that. I don't
Yeah.
remember exactly. In a very short period
And
of
it-
time.
yeah.
We didn't fish for very long.
no,
Yeah.
we didn't, because it was 105 degrees and all my food had literally melted. I opened up, I had a chocolate protein bar in my cooler and it was soup when I opened it. So
It was warm.
I had to eat.
Yeah, it was warm.
So the neat thing about jig fishing to me, it doesn't matter if you're crappie fishing, striper fishing, throwing jigs for bass, whatever, is when they hit. You know, they give you just a good thump, you know, and that's, to me, I mean, it's great to get a topwater hit, but there's something about that thump and just the moment. This is maybe where your insights on this, but that moment between like the anticipation before the thump or after, like you feel the thump, and then when you set the hook and then you're like, oh, I actually caught a fish. That moment is like, it's a really cool moment in the world.
It's nothing you can replicate, I feel. Especially like you can tell the difference between hooking the bottom and hooking a fish. Right? Hooking the bottom, be like, oh. Well, hooking a fish, you go, oh, like that. And man, just reeling in those bluefish, and man, they got some fight to them. And seeing them actually jump out of the water, trying to throw the hook and everything. I mean, it's a thrill. It's such a brief, fleeting thrill that I can understand why people want to chase it. It's like doing the best golf shot of your life and being like, can't believe I did that. I can do that again. But, you know, gosh, you're right. The anticipation of it, and also the sense of calm and peace when you're out on the water, even with you guys. No offense.
It's a lot harder to be calm around us.
Yeah.
Depends on the day.
You guys are real excitable. But no, it was just a great day on the water. I mean, the first time was fun just because being on a boat and being in nature and everything. This time was absolutely different in that there was like an electricity after the first one hit, because it wasn't too long after we had gotten there.
No, it actually, we'd gone and checked it. We knew there were some fish there, and it was actually easier. I think the bite had maybe even picked up by the time we got there. So
Yeah, it was better when we got back for sure.
Yeah, the anticipation of just, it's not just throwing a line like I did in my pond when I was a kid and just sitting there with, it's a cane pole. It wasn't just that. It wasn't watching a bobber go up and down. It was actual activity of, casting it, jigging it, reeling, and then.
Yes, we're addicted to it. We understand.
And yeah, I don't need to tell you guys, but it was something that I think I could see myself wanting to do more and more.
Well, so that's part of what we've done. I mean, we did it when we went crappie fishing. We've done it when we went trout fishing. We've done like that technique of just using a small straight tail and bouncing it. We have done
It travels.
in every place we've been.
Hiwassee, striped
We
bass
did it at
fishing.
Hiwassee.
Yep.
We've done it from literally from a place in North Carolina that I'm still questioning
It's Tennessee.
if
but
it's North
it's okay.
Carolina. Like,
It's either that or Georgia.
I'm not sure if
which
we
one.
bought the right license,
Yeah,
but
agreed.
they told me we did.
Yeah.
But from the westernest part of the state that you can get to the easternest most part of the state you can
I
get,
don't think those are words.
these are words.
Easternish
Easternest.
esque.
Most eastern.
There you go.
I like
Man.
it.
That's that Halifax County education
That's
for you right there.
That's right. I came by it honest. So all across the state, jigging a straight tail works. And if you look at the baits that Corey and I have designed, guess what?
They're straight tails.
They're all straight tail. That may not always be the case.
But the first three have been straight
There are
tails.
plans afoot. But if you're throwing a straight tail, it's not a bad play, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, it can be anything from 2 inches long to 10 inches long.
Yeah, you scale it up to whatever you're fishing for.
But it just works. And it's because of that erratic motion that they have, it invokes a response a lot of times, even if they're not feeding. Now, if they are feeding,
It's really going
it's
to.
even better,
Yeah.
because it's shaped like what they eat. It moves like what they eat, and they're going to respond to it, So
So for beginners, would you recommend that technique as something to put in your own toolbox right away?
I would think if you are just, I'm Ryan, I'm going to go buy me a fishing rod, and I'm going to get into fishing at my local, pond, creek, lake, whatever. I would buy, a light action rod. I would get straight tail jigs, curly tail jigs, and some beetle spins, and I'd start there. And you can be happy for years there, in all honesty, and very productive. And if you want to catch a bass, you just up your game a little bit. If you want to catch a striper, you just up your game a little bit. But the techniques still work. And that's, to me, why I think it's so fruitful is, once you learn how to present it, it works on, I've said this many times, there's only but so many ways a big fish can eat a little fish. And that's really all we're simulating here when we're fishing, is trying to get a bigger fish to eat our little fish. That's our lure. So the water was hot that day, but the fish still
So
needed
is the
it.
air.
And the air was hot, but the fish needed the water because fish need water.
Yep. Yep.
So
See, this is the hard-hitting information I'm looking for on this podcast.
Well, good. Glad we could share it with you.
What do fish need?
They do need water.
they need water.
Okay. All right, I'm going to write this down.
If you learn nothing else from this podcast, we want you to know that fish need water.
Should listen more often.
I
You'd
probably
already-
should.
You'd already have this.
We've touched on it before.
Yeah, a few times.
And then, obviously, while we're here,
Don't move a fish.
don't move them. Guys, we don't want the next problem fish to be all over the state. So we've got enough problems as it is with the ones we got. So don't move fish. Follow the rules, take them home. You can move them to your freezer or frying pan, but don't restock them,
Somewhere else. Yeah.
or you may visit our previous
Our previous podcast of the Blue Light Special.
on the Blue Light Special.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about your perceptions of the day out there. I mean, the gear we used. Just tell us what you used in your own words.
It was a spinner bait, was it not? Or a spinner? No?
Spinning reel.
Spinning
Is that
reel.
what you were coming
There
up with?
it
I was
is.
There you
thinking, I get that in baitcaster mixed, right?
go. Yeah, that's fine.
That's two things to get
Those
mixed, right?
are both things that bring the line in. So you're right.
See? I'm not
You're
a
learning.
total idiot.
You're learning.
We didn't think you were.
All right, well, I appreciate it.
Spinning reel.
All right,
Yeah,
we'll
good.
see. Well, that's what I used, a spinning reel. I used that on the boat,
There was a boat
on the water,
on the water.
fish underneath. It's hot. Trying to go back over things. You were there.
Indeed.
But yeah, I think we started off with live bait, and that didn't really.
We did catch some live bait.
Yeah.
And I think before it was all said and done, we actually caught some
We
fish
did
on the
catch
live
fish
bait.
on live bait.
But as many of you know, bluefish have fairly sharp teeth. So
They chopped right through it.
there was a situation with the leaders that didn't work out very well. So we switched up. We caught lots of fish on jigs. It was a lot of fun. And just, I don't know, we were probably out there 2-3 hours, something like that. And yeah, we gave Ryan the experience that he was looking for, which was, I just want to reel some fish in, feel a tug, that kind of thing. And it fit the bill. On the day that we had scheduled, it was probably the best possible solution. If we'd have done anything else, we'd have probably
Been up a creek without a paddle again.
just been really hot with no distractions from that heat.
The good thing I think was from the first one is, you guys cast it out for me and then handed it to me for that one fish. But this time I had more confidence to cast
it
it out
yourself.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually caught doing that.
Yeah, I mean, he took to it just fine. I mean, a little bit of instruction, but you took to it. It's not, I mean, you can be very technical in fishing. You truly can. Or you can just, grip it and rip it, so to speak.
It's the Ben Ricks way of life.
I'm not very subtle.
If you've ever seen
mean-
him cast a bait, you'd understand.
I can be technical, but that's not where I want to be most of the time.
I'll never forget the first time my dad was on the boat with you. And he saw you cast, I don't know what you were, probably a popping cork or something like that. And my dad looks at me and goes, I didn't know you could throw a bait that far. It's
It's like the Happy Gilmore.
that is the Ben Ricks way of doing things. I was like, it goes a long ways.
coast
Yeah.
to coast.
Yeah, I've played a lot with rods and line and stuff like that, and I've found the recipe that works for me, which
You 100% said to me the first time, probably one of the first times we were fishing together, he's like, it's not me, it's the gear. He's like, your gear's different than mine, and I've figured out my gear. And I've slowly learned that the gear does make a huge, like getting all that right makes a huge difference in being able to cast better and being more technical. I say you are technical. It's just when you're out in the sound or whatever, and there's nothing around you, you can grip it and rip it for sure.
it happens. So I thought it was really interesting to see Ryan's perspective because he had fished a little bit, but not a lot. And this is advice if you're just a novice angler and you go with somebody, trust me, if somebody who fishes invites you fishing, they want you to catch a fish, some kind of bad. They are truly,
They'd much rather you catch the fish than they catch the
yeah, they know the task that's before them and they are truly invested in your success. So if they're asking you to do something, and this is what Ryan did, he was attentive to what we told him to do and he did it and it worked. That would be my advice is don't get frustrated. You don't have to make the absolute perfect magic cast every time, but just listen to whoever's trying to help you and try to do it a little bit better each time. And, if you make a cast and one of them gets away from you, that's okay too.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect. It's about having a good time out there.
Well,
so
What I noticed was as the day went on or as the hours went on, Ryan got more and more comfortable. It started out with, he was casting like he made it out that he wasn't casting. No, he had a rod. He was casting. He was doing all those things. But like if I hooked the fish up, I just handed him the rod. That's kind of how it started. And then eventually Ryan's like, yep, don't want to do that no more. I want to do it all on my own. And so Ryan started doing everything, like he wouldn't take the rod from us at that point. And so he was catching his own fish. And so it kind of progressed. Like you could tell you had fished before. It just been a while. And so I think that was the thing that I noticed about you was that as time progressed and you caught more and more and more, the more comfortable you got with what was going on around you. And that makes a huge difference. Like the more comfortable you get, the easier I'll say it gets, and maybe not in catching fish, but the whole process gets easier.
And I would say my advice, if you're taking somebody who hasn't been fishing much, especially from what I know about some of the fishing we've done through the podcast, is maybe not take them novice fisherman muskie fishing. Take them to do something that's got a high probability of success, whatever that may be in your area, because what you're trying to do is get them interested in doing this. And success breeds success, so to speak.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say is if you're the experienced one, is you got to be patient with folks that are inexperienced, because stuff that is very second nature to you, like I deal with this with my family on the boat. I mean, and they might say I'm probably not as patient as I should be. So we'll say that.
Can you believe that?
I can't imagine it. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it either. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you got to be patient with it, because things that become as second nature to you or to me or to someone else who fishes a lot, are not second nature to that person, and you got to be kind of walk them through it, and you'll have to walk them through it again and walk them. And eventually they do it enough times.
Mm-hmm.
Like what was going on with you. It's repetition. You do it enough times, you get comfortable with it, and then you can shut up and they can go about their day and they're doing fine with it.
Right. And I mean, a lot of us, most of the gear anymore is 7 foot or longer. It's, especially if you're fishing for anything from bass on up. If you've never held a fishing rod and I hand you the 7 foot stick, and it's a little unwieldy until you learn exactly how to handle it.
What am I doing with this? Yep.
So
I agree.
There's a cast where you load the rod up. There's, all different kinds of casts and stuff like that. And I do them whenever the need arises. And meanwhile, I'm just trying to get my bait over there, whatever it takes. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's the take-home message, is that we can all enjoy fishing at our own levels.
Yeah. There's no need to gatekeep fishing. It's a fun activity to do, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can, there's all types of pieces of water near you. That's the great thing about North Carolina, is there's nobody who has water truly far away from them in North Carolina.
No. So, if you think you do, you haven't looked.
And you need to call us or email us at twoballbiologist@ncwildlife.gov, and we'll tell you exactly where to go fish or put you in contact with one of the biologists who can. So
when it comes to a beginner or let's call him a beginner, what would be like a good setup for them from a rod perspective? And what could someone expect to pay for something decent that will just get them through, at least, like you're saying, first little while before you want to level up?
I would say you could buy a combo for about $50 that's not complete junk, that will not last as good as the nicer stuff, but will get you through, several seasons, depending on how much use and abuse you give to it. So I think you can get in at a level that most people, you can buy a cane pole for next to nothing, so there's all different levels of entry. But yeah, for $50 or less, you can buy a combo.
Medium light action rod. Doesn't matter about the height, the length. 6 to 7 feet, somewhere in that range. The reel is probably like a 1,000 or a 2,000 reel. Mm-hmm. Probably a 2,000 reel.
That's the size.
Yeah, the size of the reel.
$2,000.
Yeah. No, not the cost.
Yeah.
About a 2,000 reel on a 6.5 foot rod, and you can get them, like he said, you can get a combo at a local sports shop for, about $50-$60 max, and then put line and get basic lures. All in, you're probably all in the $90 range, baits and everything. And if you keep care of it, it will last you. If you don't keep care of it, it won't last you. So I'll say that. And eventually, if you use it a lot, that rod and reel combo will break down over a period of time, but it's going to take some time. It'll be a little while before that happens. But, if you're using it as often as Ben uses his rods and reels, it's going to break down pretty quick. If you're going once every 3 to 4 months or something like that, it's probably going to last you a while, as long as you store it properly.
And it also depends on your goals, your objectives, right? So if you wanted to catch sunfish, you can buy ultralight, very modest investment. If you want to get into bass, Corey's probably right, for $50 and another $40 to $50 a tackle, you can have a assortment that's you can be pretty proficient with. So to me, that it definitely depends. Of course, you can always buy a cane pole and some worms and a couple of hooks and a couple of bobbers.
And you got about $15, $20.
And and you can have a blast at all those levels, and there's no right way, there's no wrong way. It's just what you decide you want to do and go for it. And I think that's the beauty of fishing is like we get kind of blinded by all the technology and all the fancy stuff and but you really don't need all that. I'm just as happy at a farm pond in our neck of the woods as I was striper fishing in Lake Hiwassee out in the, it doesn't matter to me as long as I'm doing it. So I can be happy doing any of the things that we've done on this podcast. And really, there's some things that I live closer to, so I do more often, but I'm just as happy doing the other stuff too. So I just like
fishing.
Like fishing.
And I really like catching.
You guys, y'all should start a podcast.
Maybe. It's part of the plan. We're working on it. We're working towards that.
We're looking to you to help us with that.
All right, I'll do what I can. Oh, I did do your music.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. I forgot about that.
If you like our music or if you don't like our music, Ryan here is the guy who did the intro. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
So very talented musician.
Any final words of wisdom, Ryan, about your day and about your experience with us?
Yeah. But first, is it crappie or crappie?
Around here, it's crappie.
Yeah, around here. Now, if you're more
west, north, or south,
it can be crappie.
It can be crappie.
We know what you're talking about if you say either one.
Sure.
But
bream or brim?
It's definitely brim.
Definitely brim.
Yes, definitely.
Fill it to the bream.
I don't know.
Is that a word?
Sure.
It's the pronunciation that's wrong, which I'm very good at knowing that.
The three of us
pronunciate words wrong all the time.
We could do a whole podcast on that, honestly.
Yeah. I make up words if you guys haven't heard.
He's awesome at it.
I'm sure you have.
That's what I love about him.
He's pretty dangerous. All right. My trip with you guys, honestly, I just had another baby, so I'm not going to call it the highlight of my year.
That's strong. It's a good play.
But it was pretty.
If somebody's listening.
But it's pretty darn good. And I really do appreciate you guys taking not just the time out of your day, but you didn't just hand me a rod and say, here you go. I was there with questions, and I was there with, I'm not going to call them fears, but apprehensions, maybe. I didn't want to look stupid in front of you guys. I already do that around the office. But like when I'm in your world, I didn't want it to be like, I look like so green or anything. Yeah. The one thing that was different for me from the last time I did it was it hurt more getting out of the boat at the end of the day. And I think that's just an age thing. But overall, I thought the first trip was nice because it's out on the water, getting to know you guys a little better, seeing, where I came from a little bit more. All that did help on this second trip. And the second trip was fantastic despite the heat and everything. After a while, I didn't even notice the heat. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, I say to people all the time, it's only hot when you're not catching fish.
And it was hot when we weren't catching.
Yeah, and when the fish quit biting, you realize, man, it's sweltering out here. What's going on? Why are we here again?
Yeah, and why am I soaked? Yeah, but it was just a great experience. And I appreciate both the time and the effort and, the scouting locations and, basically setting me up for all that success. Like, very, very grateful for
He's very good at it.
So what I would say, and then we're going to talk about some questions because we're burning our time up. But I get asked all the time, well, what can I do to help you guys as an agency? And to be honest, what we did with Ryan is what you can do. Take somebody fishing, introduce them to this world, because even if it's not their thing, they'll at least be a little more open to some of these subjects when they hear about it. They'll be a little bit more knowledgeable, that kind of thing. So, if you did nothing else for conservation other than take people fishing, you would be doing your part. So think about that as you're saying, well, how can I help future generations? And that's it. You can take people fishing. If people have a love for fishing, they will eventually get to the conservation point after that, because they'll want to do it more, and they'll want it to be better and that kind of thing. So it's the gateway to conservation for sure, is to just introduce people to the sport.
Agreed.
Okay, with that, we're going
to
question time. I like this question. The state record this was from Mr. Thompson. The state record largemouth was caught in a farm pond in Union County.
It was.
Truth. What makes this area so special? Why did it produce the state record?
It's not special.
That's what I told him.
Oh, I'm glad we had the same answer. Would have been terrible if we'd have had different answers. Well, Union County had no.
It was special in the fact that those fish were the right age. They had the right food. It's a very fertile area. But to be honest, there's very few places in the state that couldn't have had that potential to produce that fish, given all the right.
And that fish could happen again.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yes, it is a very large fish, and that's the reason it's the state record. And it hasn't been broken. Well, that record's going on quite a while now.
Been a minute.
Been a minute. Was that in the 80s?
I believe so.
I believe it was in the 80s. So it's been a while, but that doesn't mean to say we won't get a phone call next week saying,
right,
hey, I've caught this ginormous bass.
There's a lot at play. I mean, genetics, obviously, it's just like people. Not everybody has the ability to get 7 foot tall. And even if you do.
My son wishes he was. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
Yeah. Or 6, in my case.
Right. So some of that is kind of pre-programmed in their genetics as to how far they'll get. But even if they have that potential, they also have to have the right food availability. They have to be in the right terminal tolerances. I mean, there's a lot of variables at play that kind of hit this magic sweet spot to produce a fish that size. So
they have to not be caught and live that long.
You have to have low exploitation, high survivability, so that they can live long enough to get that big. And so there's a lot going on that creates those fish. And it is a bit of a perfect storm, but that perfect storm literally could happen anywhere.
Yep. Good question, though. I like it.
I mean, that part is fairly productive, so it does lend itself to good fish production, but it definitely could happen anywhere. Mr. White, he's watched the podcast. He's found it entertaining. He especially liked some of the stuff we talked about on walleye. He lives in Halifax County, so he's one of my people.
Chicken and pastry kind of guy, I bet.
He started with talking about walleye, but his real question was, is there smallmouth bass in Carr, Gaston, and Roanoke Rapids Lake? And his thought was, well, if they're in the Nottoway, which is, about 30, 40 minutes to the east and north in Virginia, why aren't they in the Roanoke? And so what do we know about smallmouth bass in the Roanoke chain?
So the smallmouth bass were stocked in the Roanoke chain. Man, it's probably the 70s, maybe the 70s. I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember right off the top of my head, but I would say generally a lot of animals were stocked in the 70s. They have a pretty good foothold in the upper Roanoke Basin. So like the Dan River that weaves its way along the North Carolina-Virginia border has quite a bit of smallmouth bass. Actually, a really good population. I've fished them there. You will find them in Carr Lake. I mean, they're not the dominant bass species by any stretch, but you will find them. You will find a few from time to time in Gaston. And as you go down the chain, you get to Roanoke Rapids. There's probably 1 or 2 in Roanoke Rapids. So don't call me that, they don't occur in Roanoke Rapids. And I would even dare say there might be 1 or 2 that get caught out of the Roanoke River, particularly up near the dam, maybe every other year, just from washing down into the system. But they generally are not in the river. They're generally not in the Roanoke River below Roanoke Rapids, but the further up you go, the more you find them. Once again, it's an animal that prefers really cooler water environments. They don't really like hot water, so that tends to not bring them to the coast. But once again, that doesn't mean that they can't be in that river. It's just generally that they're not in that part of the river. They're not native to that part. They were stocked there, like I said, back in the 70s. Basically, I'm pretty sure all Atlantic Slope rivers were not native to smallmouth. I'm pretty sure that's true. It might not be true up far north. I'm not sure. But, this is an animal that's particularly native to that upper Midwest areas, the upper Mississippi, the Great Lakes, the Ohio River, that, parts of the Tennessee Basin. And so we've done podcasts on smallmouth before. And, we talked about rivers that flowed in that direction that are across the Continental Divide in our state. That is where they are native. But, we do have a couple of non-native populations that were stocked in the 70s, and the Dan River happens to be one of them.
So, yeah, I mean, you were probably a little more optimistic on chances of encountering a smallmouth.
But I throw that out there because they always tend to pop up when you least expect it.
But you are right. They could especially have some isolated incidents of them showing up. But if you were to go to Carr, Gaston, or Running Rapids Lake right now and you were to catch 100 bass,
you probably won't catch
you probably would not see a smallmouth bass in that group, especially with our Alabama bass issue.
Generally, the ones in Carr are the ones people fishing in the upper parts where the Stanton River's coming in, where the Dan River's coming in, those upper areas where the rivers are flowing into the lake. That's generally where a smallmouth will show up, which makes sense because that's the rivers that they are in.
Right.
So.
And we do see more kind of straying from their kind of home range in the wintertime than we do in the summertime. And sometimes they'll get pinned somewhere because of that straying.
Yeah. And when I worked in District 5, I worked a lot of the Dan River in the Milton area. So if you know where that part of the state is, it's literally, there's a boat ramp right on the border with Virginia. And there are definitely smallmouth in that section of the river. That's a lower end of the Dan. So you're getting down close to the lake at that point, or pretty close to the lake. And so there are definitely smallmouth there. And I've also done work with District 7, doing a survey up there in the upper part of the Dan, and more in that Stokes, Surrey County area of the Dan River. And they are quite abundant there. And a great population. You'll run across a 2-pounder or a 3-pounder fishing. So, I mean, there's definitely a good population of smallmouth there. But as you go down, they just fall out.
So we already touched on this. Mr. Kimball called us or emailed us. What is the best time in a 24-hour window to fish? Any of those times. Preferably all of those times. Like, go fish for 24 hours straight.
Yeah, we're not being flippant about that question. It really is about when you can go. There are things that the moon does that we don't understand about fish. Moon phases, full moons have effect on fish for sure. New moons have effect on fish for sure.
And I mean, morning and evening is traditionally good, but
we caught fish in the heat of the day, high sun.
Ryan's appointment was from 11 to 3. We did well. Probably the most fish we caught all day was in that window.
Yeah, but you're right. Historically, anglers would tell you the first 2, 3, 4 hours of right at sunrise and later, and then the last 2 to 3 hours of the day before the sun sets is generally when a lot of people fish and catch fish.
There are a lot of night fishing.
There can be in certain places.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of cat fishermen night fish for sure.
So what I would say to that is, don't worry about when's the best time to go. Worry about going, and go as often as you can. If you're only fishing at the best time, whatever you think that will be, sometimes fishing when it's tough makes you a better fisherman. So you should go, again, I said it earlier, it's a numbers game. You have to go a lot to figure things out. And if you're waiting to go when it's the conditions or what you feel are perfect, you may be missing a great bite window. So just go fishing is my advice. Is the best time to go fishing is when you can. Don't really worry about the rest. The more you go, the more the puzzle pieces will fall into place and you'll become more and more of a proficient angler. And that bite window always changes too. So it could be at sunrise. It could be at 10:30 in the morning. It could be 3:00 in the afternoon. It's hard to know. And so you just got to go and see what opportunities present themselves.
So who's our monthly winner, Ben?
Mr. Kimball, because he fishes with his son. So he's a winner.
That's a winner. Yeah, absolutely. Well, as always, we love your questions and your comments. Keep them coming to us at twobaldbiologists@ncwildlife.gov. And we've had a great podcast. We had a great day fishing with you, Ryan. Thanks for coming out, and we enjoyed it. And hopefully you'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, just give me a call. We'll do it again. I do want to say, while I've got people, make sure to follow NC Wildlife on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Threads. If you're a professional type, LinkedIn, anywhere you get your socials.
Like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast,
Absolutely.
Share the podcast. Don't want to forget about that.
Yeah.
So.
But Ryan, we appreciate having you.
Gosh, it was a blast to be out on the water and a blast to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission's podcast, Better Fishing with Two Ball Biologists. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a positive review and share with your friends. If you have questions, you can email us at twoballbiologists@ncwildlife.gov, or for more information, visit ncwildlife.gov. Until next time, stay safe and take somebody fishing.